In this video, I'm going to review the CSS3 Transition property. Here's just a reference for all the elements in your transition that you can include. So, for instance, we initiate the transition. We need to include the transition property, and what that means is that what are we transitioning? For instance, padding, the color, maybe its size. You can actually include all, and it will transition every single element in your HTML, and you'll see that in action in just a little bit. Then you specify the transition duration, how long it takes for the transition to occur. Then you specify the timing function, and that refers to the ease, linear, ease in, ease out, and ease in, out. And then you can include a transition delay as well. So you would define how long it takes for the transition to begin. So, okay, so let's look at this in action now. I'm going to do a fresh code pen here. We can close the JavaScript panel. We won't be needing that. And so what I want to do is just create a simple box. Let's go ahead and do that now. And let's go ahead and include some properties for this box. It's going to be just a perfect square. And perfect. And I'll do a background of red. Okay, so there's our box right there, and we can let's go ahead. Let's include a hover state for the box. So you could do box hover, and we'll change the background color to green. So when we hover over that, it turns to green. Cool. But let's say we want to include the transition properties. Let's make a nice smooth animation. So what we need to do is include the transition property inside the box property, not the hover state, but just the original box. So here's the example. So transition, and if we follow this here, transition property, in our case it's going to be background. Put that in there. And the next one, transition duration, let's do 2 seconds. Let's do 1 second. Actually, let's do 2 seconds. And let's see, the next one is the timing function. Let's just do ease. And delay, we don't need a delay, so let's just end it there as well. So now, let's do the transition occur really slowly. Now if you want to speed this up, you could do 0.2 seconds. It'll happen much quicker. So then you could change this to however you see fit for your project. Cool. You could even change the width and height, so in the hover state. So let's do that now. So the width here, let's do 250 pixels, and then the height will also do 250 pixels. So no transition right now, but if we change this to all, you'll see both things occurring at the same time. So let me show you some more examples of it. Let's put some text in here. Let's put an H1 in here. Some text, and what I want to, okay, so heading. Okay, cool. So there's our heading. It doesn't quite fit in the box, so let's just go ahead and make that just a little bit bigger. Sure. And what I'd like to do now is hide this H1. Okay, so let's go and target that H1. Let's do visibility, hidden. Off it goes. Actually, in fact, even a different way of hiding it. Let's change its opacity to 0. Gone. And what I like to do is when the box hovers, I'd like to have that H1 come back into view. So let's go ahead and do that now. So when you hover over the box, target the H1 and change the opacity to 1. So let's try this now. There it goes, but it's not really animating, so let's go ahead and animate that now. So that, remember, the transition needs to be included in the H1 element because that's what we're transitioning. So we can keep it as all. Let's do, let's see here. Let's do linear. Lowercase. Cool, let's look at that. There you go. And then you could change the speed in which this transitions. It's really fast, a little slower, just so you can see. So you have a lot of flexibility and create some cool hover states. One of my favorite things to do with transitions, and I work with the jQuery hover state, that you can create some interesting ways of including transitions. So I'm going to show you an example of that now. So what we want to do now is I'm going to create another div container, call this one picture. Okay, and this picture, put this at the top. Let's target the picture. We don't have anything in there, and I'm going to use placehold. So here's an example of how to use placehold. And let's put that in here. There's our picture. I'm going to go ahead and hide the box. Display none. Okay, so there's our picture. And what we want to do is have this, I'm going to use this with the transform property, which is right over here in the, on the Mozilla developer documentation. And here's the different transform properties you can include in your CSS. I'll have a link to this as well. So what we want to do is whenever you hover over this image, I want this image to transform, and we're going to scale it. This one here, and I also want to go ahead and let's go ahead and rotate it as well. So here's a good example of that in action, where we include multiple functions for our transform. So let's see what that looks like in action. So we have our picture, looks good, and what I want to do is maybe do picture hover class, and when you hover over this class, we'll have the picture transform. And let's do scale 1.2, 1.2. Let's do a picture here. Remember, we want to include our transition right over here. So let's do 0.3 seconds, all. Let's do ease. Okay, so what I'm going to do is work with this jQuery hover function to add this class to our picture div container here. And what that'll do is include this property here. So let's go ahead and use that. And it's also, I would like to do the rotate function as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out. So we're going to need the JavaScript panel. So very important, when you open up the JavaScript panel, you need to click on the little gear icon and make sure that we include jQuery. So go ahead and include jQuery. Perfect, save and close. So let's go ahead and work with the jQuery hover function. And the one we want to work with is this one here, where we include a property for handler in and handler out. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. So we want to target the picture element, right? So let's go ahead and $, oops, $, picture element, nope, not that. Okay, and when we hover, we want to do a couple of functions. So the first one will be its handler in, and the second one will be handler out. And what that means is what we want to do is target this, and this is referring to the picture that we targeted up here. So these two are equivalent. You can certainly do that if you'd like to be more explicit, but they both do the same thing. And we want to do add class function. That's also a jQuery function here, and this is the class we want to add to it. Now, very important, do not put a period here, because that's not what the function will dictate. This is add class, so it already knows this is a class name. And then when we hover out of this, we want to remove this class. Perfect. Let's go ahead and save this, and let's take a look. So as I hover, let's change this to maybe minus 10 degrees. And as you can see, you have a nice little hover effect. And what you can also do is target the picture element. Let's do width. Let's do 200 pixels. Let's do height, 200 pixels. And I want to change this image size to 200. And 200. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is in this picture element, I'm going to do overflow hidden. Okay, and what this will do now is give you not exactly what I was aiming for. I see. So this picture element, we want to target that picture. So here's what I'm going after. Let's see here. Let's go back. So I want to target this image. Instead of targeting the picture, I want to target this image instead. So what we want to do in here is take this transition portion. I'm going to move that picture image. So I'm going to put that on the image. And instead of targeting the picture here, we want to do a picture image. So what this will allow us to do is give this a different look. As you can see that 200 number, it changes. So inside this container, 200 by 200, in fact, what I'll do just so you can see how this is occurring, you have a nice interesting effect inside that box. Let's use a real image. Paste that into here. And perfect. And what I want to do in this picture, it's not really optimized for this, so let's go ahead. Now you should definitely not do this. You should take this into Photoshop and size it just so, but for the sake of this demonstration, let's do 200. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do that for us. Cool. So now that you can see, when you hover over it, it has a transition where there's a scale and there's rotation transform. So that's included over here on the picture hover. So what this jQuery function is doing, it's adding the class picture hover and then removing it when you hover out of it. Cool. And just wanted to note that you don't have to use this jQuery function to create this hover effect that we've created here. You can do it without. So in this simple example, you can go ahead and comment this out. I'll hop back over here. I want to target this image here. And in its hover state, just go ahead and snag this code, place it in here, and this will create the same effect for you. But keep in mind, this gives you a lot more control, because not only can you add different classes inside this function, you can have additional functionality that can occur when you hover over the image. So depending on your scenario, you may either use this option or just simply including a hover state.